I'd like to call this meeting to order. And we will do another roll call. Wayne Ferris. Mary Hopkins. Here. Jay Beasley. Rick Robertson. Mike Roseman. Jen Sherburne is here. And Jan, are you still there? Can you hear us?
I am. I've been here the whole time.
Great, thank you. And I have a couple slight changes to the agenda. And that is the RQMI is requesting 11 Class D permits, 4 excess permits, and 1 processing. It should include 1 processing on there. As well, each one should say application/renewal. Does anybody have any other changes that I missed on the agenda? If not, can I have a motion for approval of the agenda with those changes? Motion by Rick, second by Mike, to approve the agenda with the changes of adding 1 processing to RQMI and the words application with the word renewal for A, B, and C. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, same sign. And Jan, I would just remind you that you may participate, but you're not going to be able to vote.
I understand that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, can I, motion approved 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to 0. Can I have a motion for approval of the minutes from October 14th, 2021 Planning Commission meeting and approval of minutes from the October 14th, 2021 public hearing meeting? Who else should have a copy? Motion by Rick. Second by Mike. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 6 to 0. At this time, are there any other public comments?
Hi, David Aaron, 76. On the agenda, I see you have the broadband and cats tower update. We just got a letter in the mail from TrueStream, correct, TrueStream, the fiber optic. They're coming into town. Just to let everybody know, they're coming into town in July approximately is their scheduled delivery date, bringing some good internet there. The recycling center update, or you're on your list there. Yeah, I don't see you spending a bunch of money on something that didn't work in this area. Just was it 5-10 years ago. It came and gone. So to that note there, and then on the marijuana facilities, it's apparent that you guys are legit doing it by the books and doing it to the law. But I've been born and raised here 25 years, hunt, fish, love the outdoors, and I'm not in favor of it. I don't think we have enough data to support, what research I've done in Oregon and California. They've got some concerns, water tables and a few other things. So I'm asking the board to deny any and all future marijuana facilities. I just don't think this community is ready for such a change. Thank you.
Thank you, David. You have something to,
Can I just address the water tables?
do you mind standing up? I would love for the people that are on the Zoom to be able to hear you a little bit better.
Yeah, just to address that, it's come up a few times since we began this whole endeavor. Cannabis uses significantly less water to cultivate than, say, even soy, corn, pretty much any agricultural product. Yeah, so it uses significantly less water. And like someone did bring up, we are regulated by Eagle, Great Lakes to Energy, Environmental Agency, LAIR, and a few other organizations. So we're adhering to all those laws against contamination, soil runoff, erosion, and water consumption is one of those high concerns. Obviously, Michigan's a big natural resource, so it's heavily regulated, monitored. Each site before we drill a well or use anything, there's a lot of data is running, those agencies signing off on it. So there's a lot of checks and balances that go into it.
And I appreciate you saying that, and I can say that I've seen that firsthand, visiting the marijuana grow facilities. They don't want to waste any water and they are giving each individual plant their own little water spout. So to say that it uses significantly less water than soy, corn, any of the other farms, I'm very impressed by the water conservation. Yes.
Again, my name is Kyle Allen. I wanted to kind of tick off really quickly a couple of different concerns. I think that they're valid, except maybe not applicable. To the concern about water table. We don't have a well that's large enough to qualify as commercial. It's a 6-inch well, but we do have a water meter, so we track how many gallons we use. If there's an interest in finding out exactly how many gallons we used at any given time, we'll tell you. We don't have any problem being fully transparent about that. It's a water meter that's used for state enforcement. We don't use enough water. We don't use the 1 million gallons or whatever the cutoff is, depending on your acreage, to qualify as a heavy water user. But we do track it, and we can share that information. As far as pesticides, there's a list. You can find it. Go to the MRA website at on the lara.gov portal. You can find out exactly all the pesticides that we're allowed to use, which is not very many. We could use baking soda, thyme oil, some BT, everything that an organic farmer you might expect to see. But as far as glyphosate or dicamba or microbutanol, some of the nasty stuff that your everyday farmers use, we can't use them. We might like to, but we're banned from doing it. And all of our products get tested at the end of the season for the presence of any of those banned pesticides. And you can look at the list. We test hot for any, we have to destroy our product. We're farming organically. As far as real estate values, Mr. Super makes a fantastic point. They're going up. Everyone that is asking for petitioning for a renewal had to pay a premium for land. That's being reflected in how much property taxes we pay and the contribution of the economy that we're giving. And as far as violations go, I can't speak to any non-specifics. We don't have any outstanding violations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kyle.
Am I allowed to ask somebody a question?
Yeah.
Sir in the corner, I was just wondering, if you smell what marijuana from your neighbor's basement, how does that have to do with the facility?
Well, I just made the statement that I smell it from out back every time the wind blows out of the west, which is almost every day. I get it from the plant out back, and then I
Or
got
the neighbor's basement?
Yeah, they growing it in the basement. Now they got 2.
But that has nothing to do with the facility.
Well, I don't care. I still gotta smell it. I smell it out back and I smell it from the neighbors. They got enough too. But I wasn't bitching about the smell. I was complaining because stupid Steve told him to.
All right.
Oh, hey.
No, we're not calling names, or you can leave.
That's the truth.
If you say something like that again, you're gonna be asked to leave.
All right.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
So last year, we had the 3 marijuana facilities in question operating in our township. And now we need to step back and look how this has affected the area before issuing new permits for these facilities or for any other potential new facilities. First and most obviously, I'd like to state that this has made the residents of not just Newfield Township, but the Hesperia area very upset. The minimum legal public notice was given before adopting the original marijuana ordinance. According to the minutes for that public hearing, a total of 8 people were present, including the planning commission and zoning administrator, and there was no public comment. Before the marijuana facilities moved in, almost no one came to these meetings. That has changed dramatically, and it's not a compliment. This ordinance is fundamentally changing the Hesperia area, and a change of this scope should be put to a public vote. A group of people have tried to get the current township board to put commercial marijuana on the ballot, but they refused. Last summer, everyone in this area was subjected to the skunky smell of 3 marijuana facilities while sitting on their porches, going for walks, and just living life. Residents issued a formal complaint to the board for the facilities violating the ordinance over the smell. Page 91 of the original marijuana ordinance states that the marijuana facilities are required to provide, quote, a description and plan of all equipment and methods that will be employed to stop any impact to adjacent uses, including enforceable assurances that no odor will be detected from outside the permitted premises. The board responded with a fact sheet that stated no odor could be detected from a distance of 100 feet from the facilities. We all know it's not true. Then they adopted the rule in which they changed the rule to, quote, applicant will provide information as to expected nuisance odors to be produced and any mitigation techniques employed. Instead of representing the residents, the board appears to be representing the marijuana industry. Second, last year, the facilities were found to be in violation of state law and township ordinances. The violations were brought up to the board along with photos, maps, highlighted laws, etc. The township board turned a blind eye to the violations and denied them. Some of the denials were included in the fact sheet that the board distributed. At that point, I contacted Sheriff Mast about the state law violation. He then sent a deputy to check on things and take photos. He agreed that the facilities were in violation. He contacted the township supervisor about the situation. The supervisor is now stating that since it's winter, there are no marijuana plants and therefore there is no violation of the state law. If you recommend approval of these marijuana permits, you will be complicit in the violation of this law as well as other ordinances once the plants are in the ground. I would ask the planning commission to recommend the permits be denied based on last year's events related to commercial marijuana and the opinion of we the people. Please at least take the time to look into this. If you need detailed information, I'd be happy to provide that. Since this is a public hearing, I know Steve said, Mr. Mifflin said, basically it's done. We already know we can't stop it, but this is a public hearing where the public is supposed to present their case. So I would just say the outcome should not be determined before the public hearing. If it is, this is pointless. It's just, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Hopefully not to chew into my 3 minutes. I'm Joe Bruce. I'm on Gale. I just need a clarification of procedure. You hammered the meeting out earlier, said no more comment. A lot of these still have the flavor of talk about potential. Are we continuing? Is this continuation of another?
No, Jim spoke to it being a public hearing. The public hearing has ended and now we're conducting our regular meeting.
If I may, getting on, regarding the old business, New Cats and Recycling Center. Couple key points I observed in the last meeting talking about this. I called NCATS today based upon that information that was sent to the mailbox via the direct form mailing. And NCATS replied, we are not providing a plan to provide service to all residents of the township, which is exactly what that thing says. They then went further, provided me the actual details of what was transpired. They seemed a little bit irritated that they've been represented in that manner because the actual tower installations are not NCATS. They're a private entity that stands to benefit from the process. Also, recycling center update. That was, I think, a trial balloon went out at the last meeting applying property for said recycling. Questions were asked, what's the plan? Where is it going to be put? Have you got a drawing? When we approach representatives to put up a building or do this or do that, we have to have drawings. We got to show our stuff.
Yeah.
But yet the township said we want to buy a property, and upon influence, provided recycling center, and in more influence, oh, a nice big, possibly 200-foot cell tower. Well, that's not in the plans. That wasn't presented. Once again, public input. Let's just buy the property and we'll give it later. Seems a little bit backwards what good government and good interaction is. And I would also like to mention that Mr. Micklin made a statement. He said he knew there would be concerns about this whole process. I'm neither for or against. People are here and established. It's going to be hard to turn them off. Somebody really needs to take a look at reviving or revising the go forward process. His comment personally was, when I feared there would be trouble, he contacted his lawyer. He didn't contact the people he is appointed to represent.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. It was Jim?
Joe.
Joe, I'm sorry. I can speak to being on the planning commission, and I was unfortunately at my son's basketball game the night of that board meeting, so I was not there unfortunately. But I put together several hours of a report for internet coverage, having so many students in the area and knowing firsthand what happens should we get shut down and they don't have a way to connect. And so I was tasked with reaching out to 5 different companies that are providing internet service. My personal home has NCATS. It's amazing. I don't think, and maybe the township board could speak a little bit more to this, but it's not NCATS that's in charge of that. It's the township that is working with NCATS to find where is the best place for those 6 towers. And when you look at kind of the overlap of what's not covered, that was kind of our direction with how do we get coverage to the areas that aren't covered by anything else.
Understand? Yeah, I respond.
Yes,
I'm in the same boat. I don't have anything except EVD, EV company. I'm in a blackout spot. And what you just did was provided information to me, the public, which seems like a whole lot of that hasn't been taking place. You provided a good explanation and I appreciate that. A whole lot of other things are on the table that seem to have not been talked about with the detail that you just provided.
thank you.
So thank you for that feedback. And also realize there are some companies moving into the area. Frontier, Great Lakes, we all know they're on the way. We've seen word. They'll be here soon enough.
Yeah.
What they offer should suit the bill. Get everybody hooked up.
Yeah. Nancy.
Jen, in response to David, my understanding in talking to the True Stream people, because I am eligible for True Stream where I live, and you have to have Great Lakes Energy in order to get True Stream. I said to my son-in-law, who's an ITT guy for River Credit Union, you know, should we get it? We've got Frontier and we have pretty good coverage, you know, a pretty good speed. And he says, no, go ahead and get it, Mom. You got, you know, as long as they're offering it, fill it all out, which is great for the people that are on Great Lakes Energy. For the people who aren't on Great Lakes Energy, we're trying to look at some other service. And we have been working with NCATS, and we do know about the cell phone or the cell towers. When I talked to Will yesterday, he said that what they're looking at, he's encouraging us to go with a cell phone tower, and these other places can hook onto them, because NCATS is spotty, you know, it's direct line. If you don't have a direct line, you're out of luck. You know, we've all been there probably. I've got a tower just up the hill from me, but unless I cut trees down Mike Rose's backyard, I'm not gonna get it. So, you know, that's a possibility. If you have True Stream, if you want True Stream, please go. If you have Great Lakes Energy, sign up for True Stream, because that's the best bet yet. But not everybody, I don't know how many people sitting here at Great Lakes Energy, but it's real spotty in our township. So,
Thank you, Nancy.
Just a quick question, please, of the board. I understand that the tower was erected on the facility on 186th Street for cellular or internet or whatever it was. Was that project reviewed by this committee, by this commission, and submitted to the board for the recommendation?
I don't remember seeing anything about.
I understand the township funds were in fact paid for the installation of that tower. I'm just wondering what happened with that.
we paid half of it. It was brought directly to the board and not the planning commission. We paid our half of the erection of the tower under the assumption of whoever was looking into it from the board, that the people around it would be able to draw in. I took over the project after Tammy left, and we were all under the assumption that all you people around 186 would be able to get service just by erecting the tower. We were listened for. And Will took over this from MCAS, Will Newfield, took over that with us, and we're working on it now. Too many trees.
Follow-up question real quick is that I've researched the minutes from the board meetings and I can't find any reference to an approval by the board for that project. So if the planning commission
It wasn't brought to the planning
It
commission.
was not.
and the board didn't include it in their meetings, I'm just questioning how that got, how how funds were spent by the township for that project.
It was approved the night that the check went through, that's when they had contacted.
Outside of a board meeting,
No, at the board meeting.
I didn't see the minutes. I'll follow up.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Francine. The water issue. I went over to the other side of the state to Corona, Michigan, and went around that row. And interestingly enough, their wells have gone dry. A stalk of corn does not have a drip on every stalk of corn or every soybean. Okay, but every marijuana plant does. A marijuana plant gets a lot bigger than corn, gets a lot bigger than soybean, gets a lot bigger than anything. So I know what you're saying, and I appreciate, I don't have a problem with the 3 rows that are here in and of itself, but going forward, it's like Karen Carter said, you come to the people now to go forward. You start denying and you start coming to the people. We can accept what's here. I think we would all agree because I think they're doing okay. I don't know about the water thing. We're gonna be right next to them. Would you guarantee me if my well goes dry, you'll pay me $5,000 to drill a new well?
Francine, I just have been around cornfields and I know they have
Go
those
to
giant
Corona.
sprinklers that go. with-
But it doesn't go a drip down. Every corn doesn't
I know.
get water.
But
So isn't it better to water one plant the exact amount it needs rather than spray a ton of water all over it and hope that it gets what it needs?
Statistics show a marijuana plant from start to finish requires 900 gallons of water from your drip system. Look it up. I don't know, I'm just throwing it out
Okay,
there.
well, I paid
I
a
looked it up.
scientist
Asparagus is
$7,000
258. Asparagus is 258 gallons. I just want it noted that I'm here and I'm just saying I've got one coming right in by us.
I'd be happy to publish our data.
Yeah, I would love to see it. So I
thank
think
you,
we're,
Francine.
we don't need to go with what Karen said.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I'm Sid Smith with the True North Collective. I've been farming ever since I was 12 years old. Every farm that runs that big pivot irrigation puts 2 inches of water on every day on a cornfield, 100-acre cornfield. They have 10 to 12-inch wells and they pump water. These facilities, these guys got 6-inch, we run a 5-inch well, one 5-inch well. We're not even putting a dent into the water in them plants compared to what they do for corn, soybean, wheat, oats. I've got 42 years experience farming. You're not gonna pull the wool over my eyes on water. I'm sorry. Water is not. You can say what you wanna say, but I gotta tell you, I've been around my whole life, and you wanna talk about gallons of water, start farming and put it in a pivot.
Thank you,
So
Sid.
that's what I got to say.
Thank you. Yes,
I
sir.
have a mulch layer, lays plastic on the plants, and then you put the plant in it. All the water that comes up gets stuck to the plastic. So I only watered one time in the beginning to test out the water system,
Mhm.
and that comes out straight out of the pond, not even the well at all. I didn't water one time after that for the whole season.
Wow.
Not even one.
Nice.
Adam, I do know on all 3 operations,
I'm sorry, can you restate your name for the minutes?
Adam Rumsey,
Adam.
I believe on all 3 operations, they were each put on a growing cornfield. So they took farmland, but as far as the water, those fields weren't irrigated. So regardless of what they're using, they're now using water to where it wasn't being used.
Thank you.
Brian Suka from Hightower Lake Road. Just a few random comments, maybe brief from anything. Listen to folks speak up. These comments aren't necessarily going to be in order, just off the top of my head. I do think there is a legitimate argument to be made for capping growth facilities, but that's not here, or that's not what we're here for today. But I think there is something to be said for that. There's something to be said for that. But I also, there's something I think to be said also for the people who are against the grow facilities now. Where were you at the very beginning? The reason I wasn't here at the very beginning, was because I really didn't care one way or the other. I didn't have an interest. That's why I wasn't here. I really didn't care. You don't shut the barn door when all the animals are out. Now, like from this point, if you want to say, okay, you can talk about capping it and no more, but as far as these 3 facilities that are here, from what I've seen, I found them to be honorable and even necessary. And I think it's a no-brainer. I think that the application has to be renewed. I just don't see how you can not renew them. And also, marijuana, also medical marijuana is not, there's never been a gateway drug that people went out in the 40s.
Was made 192nd. My family's from here. When I grew up, we drove through these fields, looking at the rolling hills, beautiful sunset. Now, we're gonna see 4 to 5 fields. Fences around fields. That's not beautiful. I don't wanna see that. Do you guys? No, that's horrible. There's another thing. I'm extremely disappointed in the board's lack of transparency. I've heard people say that it's our fault, that we didn't know about this, we didn't speak up when we should have. Lack of transparency didn't allow that. I first heard about this yesterday. That's not. I want to make it public that I'm sympathetic to these guys. They've already employed people. They've already got themselves established. Doesn't mean that I agree with it. But I do not agree with any further establishments coming into this area.
Thank you.
Lindsay. I have several issues, I'm not gonna go into all of them. A lot of them have been addressed. But I do have to comment on the odor. I am directly behind, to the west of 186. Our properties connect. I don't have a problem with their facility to this date, other than the fact that when it comes harvest time, late August, September, even what's into October, I believe. All I could smell. Some days I could not keep my windows open, and I built my house specifically for my view to the west. I had to close my windows because when there's a breeze, it's blowing right into my house. It's strong. Some days very strong. Keep your windows shut. Go outside, smell it all day long. Some days very strong, some days minimal, but it's there, and it's not a very pleasant smell. Those that don't live around it have no idea what he is talking about, what I'm talking about, or the people that are living next to it. Like I said, I don't have a problem with the facilities, again, like they stated, that are here, but I cannot see what the benefit of more facilities on every corner is going to do for this community. When I came to the first meeting, it was said that this would bring in so many jobs and housing. I would like to know what the data is, statistics on how many people have been employed from this community in these three facilities. I understand that there's many more facilities that's going to be going in. I have a real problem with it. You talk about jobs and you talk about people moving into the community. I cannot believe that someone that would want to move into this community and were to come and look at housing and see all of these facilities on every corner with their fences and everything would want to bring, if they have children or are retired, would want to move into this community. We have generations that have grown here and have my farm goes back to the 1800s. We have so many people that moved here when they were children and grew here or have had generations here, and we are being surrounded with these facilities. So I agree, I'm okay, they're in, they're started. I'm not agreeing to renew any permits or honor any more permits. But they're here, they're established. What are we gonna do about it? They don't bother me, they're behind me. The only thing is the noise and the smell. So far, I can't see them because there's trees in between. So I don't bother them, they don't bother me at this point.
Thank you.
But I am not about, the other part of it is, we have children, young children, grandchildren. I don't know who's working at these facilities. I have a farm. My grandkids go out into the fields. We have horses. We do sleigh rides, hay rides. We have people. Right now you can't see it, but there's so many things to take into account. If you think that we're all in agreement to expand on more facilities, if they expand on the locations that I am aware of, I will have an entire block coming from back of me all the way around to 192nd. Nothing much in between. And probably eventually they'll all sell because they are paying such high dollar for these properties that no one else can afford it. You're running out farmers, farmland. Where's the crops, where's the food gonna come from? Farmers aren't gonna be able to compete with these prices, and it's eaten up before they probably can even think about it.
Thank you for your comments. I really appreciate that.
Well,
Take them into consideration. Thank
Hey,
you.
Jennifer, it's Jan. I have a comment on that.
Jen, I'm gonna actually put you up a little bigger on the screen.
Great.
Go
I'm
ahead.
not big enough already. I just want to respond to that young lady who just spoke. Just so you know, the properties that have been purchased for the cannabis farms were people in your community who decided to sell their properties. If the people in your communities did not sell, these farmers would not have come here. So you need to focus on why that happened. Was it because they couldn't make enough money farming anymore? Was it because they were retiring and wanted to go somewhere else? So I just want to appeal to you to say, this was not something that the planning commission or the board said, hey, let's just go find some people and tell them to sell their property to the cannabis farmers. That is not what happened. We had nothing to do with that. Your neighbors sold their properties for this specific use. They knew when they sold their properties what the property was going to be used for. That's all I have to say.
And to you,
Thank you,
somebody
Jen.
came to you and offered you 10 times the amount of what your property's worth, and someone else was interested but didn't have nearly as much money because property was selling a lot higher than what it ever normally would under these conditions.
But it was still your neighbors who made that decision.
Farmland,
Not us, not the board, not the planning commission.
not owned. There you go.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Chris Herron, 6326 East Loop Road. And if my wife saw me out in public like this. Anyway, to the lady that just spoke, that's the problem. It's arbitrary. It depends on who's in a position and a need to maximize the value of their money. Just a couple things regarding the board and the recall. Any municipal or entity that represents the people deals with each issue on a case-by-case basis. Because there's a disagreement or an issue in a particular issue, I said that twice, takes nothing away from the good work that they've done in the past. It's about being non-responsive to the situation at hand. And to all the people, understandably, who are pro marijuana, and I agree with the gentleman that's in charge of the oversight, the train has left the station on a number of these permits. That's not the issue. It's going forward. And the fact that the township has not made their voice heard. It doesn't matter whether we were asleep at the wheel 3 years ago. We're awake now, and now is what matters. But I've got a list of links that talks about water usage, talks about legalizing pot and dispensaries hitting children with low income communities hardest. Marijuana farm odor hurts neighbors' property values. So for any governing body to just listen for a half hour or 60 minutes to a few people who happen to have bits and pieces of information without digging in and doing your due diligence in the science of what's going on is just not responsible.
Thank you. I feel like I should at this point just take a minute or two and kind of give you a little bit of a backstory, as briefly as I can. And I came onto the planning commission in 2018. And it was shortly after that that the marijuana ordinance started to be discussed. And I came to the table thinking, absolutely not, do I want marijuana grown in the place that I teach and that I'm raising my two sons. We had 7, and please correct me if I'm wrong, we had 7 different types of permits that we could allow. And we talked for several meetings about what we wanted to do with those different types of permits. And it really did come down to the ones that were related to agriculture. There are permits that would allow sales, and we decided not to allow that. There's, even if you've ever been to a wine tasting before, there is a permit that would allow marijuana tasting. We decided we did not want that. However, being an agriculture community and having been here for almost 2 decades now, it was very apparent to me as I saw my class sizes, my school getting smaller, that we were not growing, we were going the opposite. And absolutely no one had ideas or anything was coming to the table with how do we grow the community. And I feel like this was an opportunity for us to say, all right, of these permits, the ones that are agricultural related, those are the ones that we were going to allow. And so that's where the planning commission is coming from, as far as what could we do to bring jobs to this community? What could we do to bring some additional revenue, to do some things that we want to do in this community? And I don't know if anybody else has anything that they'd like to add that was on there.
That's exactly how it was approached.
Okay.
There's been a couple of the restaurant owners uptown that said that their revenue has really gone up since marijuana facilities have been in here.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead.
Once again, you're being transparent, you're sharing this information, and the thought process takes place at that table. But take it out a little bit further. Going forward, one, I would ask, within the toolbox of the planning commission and the elected officials above, if you wish to increase the number of permits, or you wish to approve new permits for people who are waiting in the wings to come to the community, is there any mechanism that will kick out and require a public hearing, not a meeting, a public hearing for voices to be heard and this discussed?
Any new application
Any new application?
requires a public hearing.
Public
Any-
hearing or a public meeting?
Public hearing.
And where is that written in the ordinance?
It's
I
in
just
there.
wanna know if my-
It's, okay, we have the ordinance right here.
Okay. That's why I'm asking.
No, it's a
I'm
great
not
question.
Familiar with the most debate.
Okay.
I didn't realize that the one person in here that called this meeting.
Yeah.
And, but for raising existing permit numbers, does that require public? You know, everybody says this is going big.
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
Steve.
Yeah, if I can answer you.
Appreciate it.
There's, I think folks get confused about this concept. There are facilities and there are permits. Okay, a facility is just that, it's a physical location. Under our ordinance, we allow for 10 Class C facilities. Now, a facility may have 1, or in theory, it could have 1,000 permits. Those are 2 separate things, number of facilities and number of permits. All facilities to date have multiple permits. Just on an economic basis, doesn't make sense to just have 1 permit. They can't make enough money on that. It's a go big or go home thing, just like any other agricultural pursuit. You know, it used to be a big dairy farm was 1,000 cows, now it's 5,000 cows. It's a similar thing. But within that, any new applications require a public hearing. And that would be in, I believe it's section D, I'm sorry, section D. That every new facility will require a public hearing.
We get to talk about this once again, it's gonna be printed in the paper.
Absolutely, it
Adequate
is,
time for
it is
comments.
public hearings are covered by state law. You are required to publish in the paper, and I know there's a conflict about that. Under the law, there's a publication of record that you are required to publish in when you have a public hearing or any sort of action, ordinances, things like that. Okay, our publication of record is the Oceana Herald Journal. It's not our choice. The state sets that. And we have to follow state law. So that's where we have to publish. We have oftentimes, I don't know if we've done it every single time, but a lot of times we'll also do it in the Times Indicator or the highlights, because we know that more people read that than the Oceana Herald Journal. The other requirement for a public hearing is any property owners within 300 feet of the subject property, in other words, the facility, have to receive written notice by mail. Same thing, we go on.
Is that 300 feet, if I may ask?
300 feet.
From the building?
From the property.
So if you place a building deep enough within a sizable property, you don't have to notify anybody around.
No, from the property line, yeah. So that's why the letters went out. I sent out 35 letters, I believe, for tonight. Something like that, because I basically, if you go on to the county GIS site, okay, you can snap a line. Well, I can just take a line of 300 feet and circle that to find every property on each side within 300 feet. Now, obviously, in a lot of locations where you have larger property parcels, 300 feet might be just one parcel.
Thank you for clarifying that, Steve.
Can you also, he just clarified the part about the pipes, but what does the cultivation permits? Can you tell?
Cultivation is growing.
Okay, so why would, if they have a permit for the site, why do they need 15 cultivation permits?
Because there's a limit to the number of plants that can be grown under each permit.
And what is the number?
Okay, and it is on there are different classes. These are all class Cs.
Steve, do you mind standing back up? Because I think this is important for everybody to understand.
All right, I'll even do this. Okay. The state, if you were to farm corn and you bought 100 acres, you can plant as much corn as you want on that 100 acres. No one can tell you how many little seeds or whatever you can put in. You want to put in 1,000, put in 1,000. You want to put in 15,000, go nuts. Okay, and in marijuana, because it's much more regulated by the state, and I'm going to really confuse things now. The township issues permits. The state issues licenses. In a sense, they're the same. So in other words, if I want a Class C license for medical marijuana, that allows me to grow 2,000 plants. Okay, I'm sorry, 1,500.
Medical, let's see, 15, 2000.
Okay, 1,500 plants for that permit and license. So the township says, okay, here's a Class C permit. I now go to the state. I said, okay, I have a permit from the township, and they issue a license also for that same amount. Now, because I have a whole bunch of land, I don't want it all empty. So I'm gonna have to buy multiple permits to fill up my land.
So on the 15 cultivation permits,
That's in one facility
right, but it's 1,500 plants per
per
permit.
permit. Yeah.
And there is a permit fee that the facility pays
Pays
for each
each
permit
permit.
as well.
The same thing to the state.
which is,
It's $5,000 per permit.
The township.
I'm sorry,
The township.
to the township. And then for the state, it's $40,000 per permit. So they get 8 times what we do. One, again, we changed when we revised the ordinance last fall, is it used to be there was a $2,500 application fee and then a $5,000 permit fee. When we consulted our attorney, he said, you're doing that wrong. You're exceeding what the state will allow. And because they say up to $5,000. So what we've done is we modified the ordinance so that now you pay a $5,000 application fee. If you get the permit, obviously your permit is paid in full. If you're denied the permit, you get a refund of $2,500. So in essence, our $2,500 application fee still remains. I hope that was kind of clear.
So for 15 cultivation permits, and the way that people are asking questions about future grow sites, and your ordinance is such, does the township have the ability in their ordinance to only allow so many permits per?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
per
but
site?
not per site, no, no. So in theory, someone could come in, we allow 50 Class C permits. So in theory, I could go and say, I want all 50 for my facility. And if I was the first in line, I'd have all the permits
and they're all used up.
and they're all used up. That's not how it's working in practice, but in theory, yes, one facility could eat up every permit that we have.
Thank you for explaining that, Steve. I appreciate it. If there are no other public comments, I'd like to go. Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to address what you said. I appreciate your looking to it and giving us a little bit of information to some of us did not know.
It has been a learning experience for us.
But having said that, I just would like to reiterate again, is all you said, like you put in a lot of thought into the process and everything, and that is appreciated, but if so much thought was put in it, there again, why not bring it to the people? Yeah, we are the constituents, we live here. Some of these people are from Jackson or from Chicago or by Detroit. Fill them there if you want them there then, but we live here and we raise our children and grandchildren here and we like the clean, fresh country air. And I just think that it should be up to all of us, not just you guys and them. Yeah.
Thank you.
Jennifer, could I ask for some clarification?
Karen, go ahead.
Okay.
I spoke directly with the owners from Chicago who had the piece of property that borders mine clear cut. And they led me to believe that they were affiliated with RQMI. Is that true?
Yes.
Yes, that's true. Yes.
Okay, when you're talking about permits and public hearings and that sort of thing, if they are applying for, I would think they would be in the application stage at this point. Is that an extension of the RQMI present facility, or is that considered a new separate one?
That would be a new separate facility.
Okay, so if I reiterate to you that I don't want any new ones, I could say I don't want you to consider the application for that 176th property, correct?
Correct. We're not considering that tonight.
Okay, and then I want to respond to Jan when she said that it's your neighbors who are selling that property. That isn't directly true. In the case of the purchase for the 186 property, a real estate agent bought that property, flipped it, made $20,000 extra dollars, and then sold it to RQMI. And then,
But still, that real estate agent bought the property from your neighbor. And then flipped it.
Good point. Good point.
Right.
And I would argue that point because there's been no one there for 50 years. So I'm not sure that that neighbor really knows what that property is, or if they're really a neighbor if we haven't seen them in 50 years.
And I agree with you, Karen. It was probably somebody's grandchild or somebody who just had the property that was left to them and they never used it and they saw an opportunity to make some money off the property. Yeah, I agree with you. Wholeheartedly.
And the other thing that I wanted to mention, in my conversation with the gentleman from Chicago on site, on the property, I said, I wanted you to take a look at what this looks like when you clear cut a woods. And their comment was, it looks pretty messy here. And I said, yes. And I said, the concern in our township is we've been promised by our township government that this will benefit the township. And I said, I don't see any benefit to the township right at this point. And the owner, and I quote, I would agree with you. Therefore, again, I request that you don't issue any more new permits, that if you need to extend the ones that are currently there, maybe that's our compromise for those of us who don't want it at all. And those of you who think we need it and you're helping us, then how about we stop where we are?
Thank you, Karen.
And an additional piece of information regarding realtors he provided. I don't want to stand on a soapbox, but in discussion with a couple of realtors regarding the absence of potential growth sites where they may be considered to come in. Stuff we use doesn't seem to be in play here. You're not putting a sign up that says this place may be utilized in the future. It's being considered now for road purposes. Anybody driving by doesn't see it. As an example, the house is sold across the street, the sale takes place, the family moves in across the street in the spring, the excavators get dumped. They go, what is this? There's really no law that says in the disclosure to sell that house, the realtor had to tell them, oh, there's a growth site. And as a community, there is nothing that says it's going to happen because it's hiding behind the paperwork show. Talking with some realtors, transaction she spoke of where your neighbor sold the place. That's the bottom line. The buyer doesn't have to tell them why they want to buy it, just that they want to buy it. So there's reputable transactions and there are not so reputable transactions taking place. And as a result, realtors will not admit it because of the business they do, but if they even sense that there's a marijuana deal behind it, they're going away from the situation. They can't legally, you know, there's some obligations and some ethics there with their association and the realty rules. They don't want to be around that. So from the outside, around Newfield looking in, you got people who have a profession that you want to buy and sell land. They sense what's going on here, they're heading the other direction, leaving it for no man's land.
Thank you.
Well,
Yes, sir.
I have one question for the grow facilities. Are any of them planning on building housing for their workers on these properties?
Steve, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, so we can't actually build it on the parcel that the license is on. You need to actually zone out 2 acres of your parcel to do that. But I mean, yeah, there's been talks.
Well,
How many people?
So you're thinking of putting it on your property on Yonkers and 200?
Not necessarily, no, but there, you know, we've talked.
This is what really peeves me off. When I moved here 20 years ago or better, I had to have 5 acres minimum to put my house on. And you guys need to be held to the same standard.
well, wait. Can I answer that?
Yeah.
Wait, Let me answer that, okay? A couple of years ago, actually, it was what, 3 years ago?
Hey, Steve, honestly, I don't care if it's 2 acres or 5 acres, but they do need to be on that same track as every other person in this
Well,
room.
they are. Wait, let me finish, please, okay? A few years ago, the planning commission recommended and the board approved in AR1 zoning to reduce the minimum acres from 5 to 2.
Great.
At the same time, they also decreased the minimum square footage from 540 square foot to 240 square foot. And the idea of that was to make it more affordable for people to purchase land and develop a house.
But that's for a single home.
I'm sorry?
That's for a single home, not
That's for a single home, yes.
What I am trying to get at is, you see a bunch of these pole barn houses built up and down my road. They, you know, and because of you, they get to go by this lower amount of acreage and amount of square footage.
That's not because of me. This is what the planning commission and the board.
Well, at
decided.
200 and some odd square feet, I could build a 10 by 10 shed and live in it.
No, you'd have to be 12 by 20, but.
Okay,
but that's-
there you go.
But that's, the idea is tiny, we're allowing tiny houses. And the idea is.
That's a bunch of bullshit, though.
It's,
All right, Quinn.
okay, we're done.
Thank you.
I've got some pertinent information on the housing thing.
And wait, can I please finish, Jim?
I think he thought you were done.
I'm
He thought you were
sorry.
done.
One of the issues, we have been, actually, one of the things that, several of the facilities here and I have talked about is developed housing. And unfortunately.
Is that migrant or permanent?
Permanent housing.
Permanent housing for migrant workers?
No.
For my employees that would like to live here and work at the farm.
Yes, this is for, and actually, not just for the employees, but in general, there's a terrible housing shortage here. And home prices have increased through the roof. Property is selling very quickly. We're gonna talk about it later, but people are building in the township. More this year than the previous year, but that's a different discussion. The point being is that we wanted to be working on housing. We haven't been able to work on housing because we've been distracted by certain other things that have wound up eating up all my time. I have a background, I've spent 15 years in the affordable housing industry. I've developed over $8 million of housing in Oceana County. And Sharita knows that.
We won't discuss it.
Yeah, we won't discuss
Because
it.
some of us don't agree with it.
That's fine, but anyways, but the point being, is I have a background in there. And I've done an awful lot of it. There's an awful lot of families housed in Oceana County because of the work that I've done over those years. And I wanted to continue it here. I think one of the terrible things is that our county housing folks have focused everything on Hart and Shelby and have completely ignored the Hesperia area. And I think, so someone needs to do something. We'd like to address that. We can't if we're being scattered all over the place and having folks not cooperating.
I would love to have everybody speak as many times as they want, but I feel like our regular meeting is turning into a town hall meeting.
Could I please bring up an email?
Yes.
So through a Freedom of Information Act request, I was able to obtain an email about the facility on Walker and 200 with the county health department about a septic system for a 36-bedroom seasonal migrant housing facility. So just, I mean, that's something that I have the email and I can share it with you guys. But as far as housing goes, I do have that. Throw that out there.
Okay.
Jennifer, can I say something?
Jan.
And I'm addressing the growers. I believe that they are not allowed to have migrant workers on their farms. They have to be US citizens. Am I correct about that?
Worker doesn't mean that you're foreign, they're traveling workers. So people
I
can
understand
travel.
that, but I thought that maybe I misunderstood, but I thought that they were not allowed to work your facility. Am I wrong about that?
No, it's non-citizens.
There is a citizenship requirement for working on Michigan campus.
Did you hear that, Jan?
No, I didn't. Please say it again.
Said that there is a requirement to be a US citizen to work on a Michigan cannabis farm.
Correct. And that's what I was getting. And I think some of these people think that migrant workers are people who don't live in our country. And that's not always true, but you have to be a US citizen to work the cannabis farms, just to clarify.
Thank you.
Back up 6 minutes from True North again. Go back to the workers and stuff. everybody that works at True North besides Johnny. Sean who lives in Twin Lake, Jamie lives in Hesperia, I live in Hesperia, there's 7 more that live in Hesperia that work there. We got a kid from Mesquite that come up to work there, we got a kid from Shelby. Everybody at True North is all local people. And that's what they're striving for, is to give our town people work, not outsiders from 3-4 hours away. They want to give these guys that don't have a job in Hesperia the opportunity to work there. And the problem is, I had to go out myself and get 7 or 8 people to come to work for us because they were running a temp service, trying to get workers, and guess what? Half of them are felons. Can't have a felon work there. So there you are with no workers, so I made a phone call and brought all my brothers up, everybody up, and hey, they love it there. They're off for the winter now, hopefully they get called back in the spring, we're all back to local people and it's jamming. You know, that's all I got to say, it just, we're trying to keep it local, these guys are all trying to keep it local so we can work together. Johnny's from Jackson, that's because he lives there, he works there, but he takes care of everything we do up there. So he traveled up today and tomorrow to be here to explain and talk to us. So,
Very early on.
that was way back, but
We were just wondering if
we don't have no room for it.
if there wasn't a workforce, we wanted to be able to provide housing for my employees in the Jackson area. If we weren't able to find people that already live up here. So we didn't want to make people commute 3 hours. We wanted to give them housing so they could focus on their jobs, their health. I also give health insurance to 50 employees, 100% of the premium for all of their family as well. So we give a lot to the employees so they can enrich the community and give to the GDP of the local economy. So we were trying to give them houses to be able to focus on the work.
And it's really good money to put it in for everybody, so everybody can have a job. So if you know anybody looking for work, so
Come on down.
please do.
John Grice and I'm Karen Carter's neighbor, and the parcel she's talking about, 40 acres of what was pretty dense wood land.
Okay.
It's got a couple trees standing in it yet, but this is a parcel that in the approval process. They're already doing all this work in it, and if you haven't even approved the permit yet.
That parcel has not been brought to this planning commission.
Yeah, I know, but they've got about 50, 60 grand in work already done on it.
So
If you don't kind of rubber stamp it, they're gonna come back and sue you. So you almost have to approve it, don't you?
I don't think we do. We have, it has not been brought to the planning commission at all.
I have one that hasn't been addressed.
Yes, Francine.
What happens if, let's say you approve all 10 rows? It's a phase, maybe. Things are phases, okay? If our dying of COVID, the population is going down. When these, let's say out of 10, 3 of them go belly up. What happens to them? What happens to those tiny little houses? Is that gonna be more blight in Hesperia? Look around. Is there a plan for these rows, if they decide this isn't working, to remediate that land and plant trees before they go or not?
I think one of us would just buy their farm from them.
And what?
I would buy the property, turn the fence on buildings, I'd use the buildings for tool shed, and I'd go back on there.
Okay, but
Francine, the planning commission does not have a plan for the mirror.
But when my dad was a landowner, he had the say, when he started subdividing, my dad, as a farmer, had a say in what was coming in the lots he sold. Now, it sounds like you've got some little tiny houses coming. Is that correct?
No, we don't have anything coming.
A plan for all.
There's
these
none. There's none.
I know nothing
And
about
I'm
that,
saying,
Francine.
I don't want you to. You gotta think long-term, and I'm asking you to think of when they go belly up, or they decide they don't wanna do this anymore, because it happens.
Thank you.
The good thing, you're all in positions where a farmer can come back in and get rid of stuff, sell the stuff, and go right back to planting corn beans. Because everything's so much organic in there now, year after year after year, it'll just go back and grow better
Or
crops.
how could they afford the land?
They'd have to about give mine away. They'd have to. I mean, if they ain't gonna set on it, there's no way possible.
All right, thank you. At this time, I would like to move on to communications. And I do have a letter from Rodney Miller and Cheryl Miller opposing all permits associated with marijuana grows. I have, Peggy spoke, but I have her letter up here. And then I also have, I just got this last week, it's officials training by the Michigan Association of Planning. So I made you all a copy of this, so you have that to review if there's anything that you're interested in. I have a feeling that the township board would be willing to support the fee to attend if you are interested. Does anybody else have any other communications? Okay, hearing none, then I will move on to old business, and we've kind of already talked a little bit about the broadband and the NCATS tower update. I know it was in the newsletter also that's coming out, and I'm not sure everybody has received that in the mail yet. If you haven't, I'm sure it should be there shortly. I don't have a ton more recycling center information as an update, so I was kind of hoping to defer to Nancy or Joe about the recycle center. Could you speak to that real briefly?
Recycle Center was put together with an idea and a grant from Michigan. And Lola Harmon, who is with, runs a recycle service in Newfield County and in Fremont itself, helped me write the grant. We submitted it. It's for approximately $45,000, right in there somewhere is what we estimated. Mike Roseville put together an estimate for a cement slab for us. We do have a site plan. Cement slab, the cost of the poles being put into the cement. We do not need any other land than what we already have over here to the north of the building, and that's where it would be placed. We are looking at purchasing our own dumpsters so that they're ours and they will be dumped once a week. It's a clean recycle. You put everything, you can put everything in the dumpster that's clean. And then we've been accepted by a company, should it go through. We are been accepted by a company in Grand Rapids where they take the recyclable material. And they have people who are incarcerated in Grand Rapids come in and sort recyclables out. So that's why we can put them, you can just put it all in one dumpster. You don't have to separate it like we used to downtown when they first came in.
Yep.
So she also just received herself an $88,000 grant to work in the Newfield County and surrounding area, school systems, villages, to go ahead and teach about recycling. That she already has received, so she's gonna be doing that anyway.
That's awesome.
We should know by the end of February if we are going to be, if we get the grant, and then we can work from there. I have estimates on security and for, we're looking at lighting. And we had already approved lighting for the parking lot because the last election, we had people standing in the dark out there at 9 o'clock at night. So approved that, kind of waiting to see if the recycle center grant comes through, then maybe we can incorporate what lighting we were gonna have for the parking lot center. It would be manned by volunteers. We've been contacted by a lot of people who are very excited about it and want to volunteer. So we wrote the grant and included not only Newfield Township, but the village of Hesperia has agreed to give us, they gave us a letter of support. Denver Township gave us a verbal support. Greenwood Township gave us a letter of support. So it's not just for Newfield Township residents. It's not going to cost you anything. We will have a donation box if you want to. It'll be open certain hours, and not every day, but you know, that's how it's going to be open, but they will have a dump. We will be charged per dump. So if only they come in and there's only 3 that need to be dumped, that's all we're charged that week. We've had very positive input. It was a pleasure working. When we to give some reasoning. And one of the reasoning is a lot of people, we have a dump day in the spring and one in the fall, and they're very, very successful. All those. There's a lot of people who cannot afford waste pickup. I pay $75 a quarter. That's a lot for a family or anybody, you know.
I think it's great, Nancy, and I really appreciate all the work that you work with at school, because school is not doing any recycling.
Even
anymore
if we
either.
don't get the grant, that give you and to go into all the schools, and Hesperia with its unique positioning can qualify for Hesperia, can qualify for Nuevo County and Oceana.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's head on to election of officers, and we need to elect a chair, a co-chair, and a secretary. I'm not missing anything, am I? Okay. So does anybody have a?
No, second.
So there is a nomination for Jennifer Sherburne for chair by Mike and a second by Jay. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, sign. And co-chair, which is a new position that we decided on in the fall, when the township board approved an additional co-chairperson, as well as an increase in our number of meeting dates from quarterly to bi-monthly. So is there a nomination for co-chair?
You nominate Wayne.
Mike would like to nominate you, Jan.
Well, you know, I would take that position, except that I'm never gonna be here in the wintertime. I can't do it from far away.
Okay. Well, I would like to nominate Jay. Would you accept? So I have a nomination by myself for Jay and a second by Mike for co-chair. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, sign. And then secretary.
Looks like Mary Martin's doing a pretty good job right now.
Are you nominating Mary?
I am, Mary. Don't be mad at me.
You good with that?
Yeah.
Okay, motion by Jan, support by Rick. All those in favor for Mary as secretary, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
6-0. Thank you. Stepping right into it. I love it. All right, and the next on our list is the 2022 meeting dates. And we had proposed back in October that we meet April, June, August, September, November, and January, and the second Thursday of the month. And I can tell you specifically what days those are. And they were just in the newsletter as well. They were April 14th, June 9th, August 11th, September 8th, and November 10th. I don't know what the second Saturday or second Thursday in next January was without looking.
We'll figure that out later.
12th. So can I get an approval for those next 6 regular meeting dates? A motion to approve those meeting dates.
Motion.
Was that you, Jay? Motion by Mike, support by Jay for approving those 6 meeting dates. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, then the big one on our new business is the marijuana permit application renewal. And I have on here question and answer and discussion. So this is the time that we get to ask, based on the permits in their applications that you received last week, any questions that you have to the 3 companies.
I just have one. It seems to be like the smell a major concern. Is there any way of dissipating it if it's? I know the fences are supposed to be helping, and obviously they do. I mean, I only smelled it one time last year from my place. And I get a west wind all the time, so.
I got a little shoulder and maybe can help you out.
Okay.
This is 5 most common terpenes on the marijuana plants, which we find on all of those. Yeah. And that would be also some of the, this is all the marijuana terpenes, which can find some of the most in their common ones. And what they are used for. I made 5 copies so that I can have. Okay. You can pass that on. Thank you. Yep. Depending on the strains, if you go on the fruitier side or skunkier side. In this case, we have mostly fruity and fine smell.
I mean, I only smelled it one time and it didn't bother me, so.
It's mostly towards the end of the harvest.
That's when it was at the very end of the season, yeah.
Kyle, I have a question for yours. I think yours is the one that, on 186, the CO2 extraction system. What's that? Can you speak to what the CO2 extraction system is?
Sure. That's a proposal right now.
Okay.
And that is for the processing.
Okay.
Part of our applications.
Okay.
We're not running any processing operations right now.
Okay.
The main focus of our enterprise is cultivation.
Mm-hmm.
Could we elect to actually use their processing license for processing?
Mm-hmm.
Probably the easiest way to do that would be to use a machine that employs CO2 as a solvent.
Okay.
To extract mostly THC from the cannabis that we grow on the site.
Okay.
There's a couple reasons for that. One is other solvent methods, ethanol and basically butane. Those can be used as solvents as well to do an extraction process.
Mm-hmm.
We're very closely watched by the fire marshal's office, the state fire marshal, the Bureau of Fire Safety or Bureau of Fire Services. And they make the process jump through hoops if they use an explosive solvent.
Okay.
We'd rather avoid the hoops and go with a CO2 process. Doesn't necessarily mean that we're promising to necessarily do any processing, quite honestly, but we prefer the CO2 method. If we, for some reason, have a change to make, we'll advise. But right now, we have not.
Okay, so that isn't, you are requesting a processing permit, but you're not sure you're going to be processing on the site?
We're relatively certain that we'll process on the site, but extraction and processing don't necessarily have to be the same thing. There are certain undertakings that the state calls processing. That is medical to adult use conversions.
Okay.
So there are reasons why we would want to have a processing permit, local permit, and that there's reasons why we would pay for it.
Okay.
Quite honestly, it doesn't necessarily mean to extract cannabis oil from cannabis. It's not the only processing thing that you can do with a processing license in Michigan.
Okay.
Sorry if that's not completely clear, but if you've got another half an hour or 45 minutes, I'll go into depth on the whole thing.
We're good, thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask him on that also?
Yeah.
Is that going to add any order to the already existing order? Any type of processing? Any type of processing?
Yeah. Well, here's one type of process, I mean, and that would be setting up a commercial kitchen, which involves the health department, of course, and baking brownies where cannabis is an ingredient. That would have an odor to it. Extraction typically has zero odor in my experience, especially CO2 extraction. It is not an odor intense undertaking, in my experience.
Thank you. What else does anybody have?
Just kind of agree with Mike there, because the basic issue I think we're all looking at is the odor issue. I think that came to light this year when we got the groves going. I had attended a meeting back in either 2018 or something, when somebody come up from Muskegon and warned us of the odor process. That we didn't really understand what we were getting into at that point. We're only looking at, like you say, during the harvest time where the most odor is happening. If per se, instead of putting a grow facility in this place, we put a turkey farm in that place, you would have 55 days out of the year and not a thing you could do about it. Nothing. Now, if you people go down here and drive around the turkey facilities in Brunswick, you can't roll your windows up fast enough. It's horrible. And I wish there was more screening that could be done with conifers or whatever to help break down odor, but I'm sure you're not gonna get away from that all. It's just my.
Well, and I think that's great. And I think it's interesting to know that the 3 facilities are primarily growing for the oil. And this was a question that had come up earlier in my mind and I had forgotten. Are you genetically modifying the marijuana plants for being less smelly? Is that a valid question? Because I know nobody wants smelly gum. Okay. Because you are growing plants that are less smelly than like the home grower that can grow their 12 or 24 plants coming out of the basement. It smells coming out of the basement.
Cannabis does certainly have a signature odor to it, but that odor is shared. And I appreciate Andre introducing the concept of terpenes. What makes cannabis smell is the same thing that makes other plants smell too. So pinene is one of the terpenes. That makes cannabis smell kind of cannabisy. It also is the same thing you find in pine trees. Limonene is another one that's found in lemons. The components, the odorific components in cannabis are almost exclusively found in other plants on the planet. So it's not specific to cannabis, the smells that we smell. Now, I just want to make that point. I also want to make the point that, yes, it's typically during around the time when the plant is mature that it gives off the most of its scent. That would be in October, in that area, not totally limited to October, but almost. How to limit that? The biggest thing that you can do to limit that is siting, is to pick a site that's not next to a bunch of people, especially next to a bunch of people who for some reason have picked out pinene and limonene and linalool and the rest of the family of terpenes and find them objectionable. I've got to tell you that there are some people, I'm certain in this room, who think that cannabis smells really good. It's got a fantastic perfume to some people. And other people that don't like it, I understand, but it may be the reason that they don't like it. They just don't like the idea of cannabis. Period. Now, the best thing that we can do to mitigate it is to do what we've already done, which is put to locate cannabis facilities somewhat remotely, and that was our strategy by our site selection. Is to buy it wasn't next to a lake with a bunch of vacation homes or something like So we're rural. That's one thing. Another thing that's helpful is what the ordinance has already done, and that is to provide setbacks. So there are, the front, 150-foot setback from the front yard, from the street or the public way. And there are 100-foot setbacks from the property line all the way around our property. That reduces density and makes sure that we're that much farther away from our neighbors. Those strategies are helpful. They will work. What else can we do? Not a whole lot. In terms of breeding for low odor, I think that could be done over a 10 or 20-year period. But it's not something that I expect that we'll ever be able to do by tomorrow, or that I feel comfortable promising anyone. Yes, that will be happening by May or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm new to this and I'm getting caught up with what's been happening the last few years. From what I understand, we have to grow shrubberies and fencing around all the fencing, right? Shrubbery and trees around all fences?
Yeah, that's what
Okay.
Vegetative area is required by ordinance.
Okay, so if you decide to do all pine trees, does that terrapins, whatever is chosen, can that possibly mask the smell or could it heighten it?
Pine trees are actually very high in terpenes themselves. That's why you get a pine odor. And so, yes, as the pine trees mature and get older, and some of that also depends on climate conditions and insect conditions. Terpenes in plants generally exist to keep pests away. It's kind of a defensive mechanism for the plant. That's the idea of the stinky, in a sense, is that if the plant is stinky, the insect goes, you know, and goes the other way, and which in theory works for humans too, I guess. If it's stinky, you don't want to be by it. So yes, it will mask some of the odor. It won't mask 100%, but again, it, you know, how much terpenes and stuff, the pine trees or the biggest producers of terpenes are pine trees, oak trees, and gum trees and birch. And again, it's going to depend on
It's a good question. And I think it was good to bring up that they have to have a vegetative barrier in addition to the opaque fence that they have to build. That they have to have some sort of natural barrier, yes.
How long will it take to establish a tree line of significant size to counteract this smell that is here instantaneously?
I don't think that they're saying that it's going to completely counteract, and that's more, the vegetative barrier is more for a visual appeal, aesthetic.
I was just curious if we could, you know, for efficiency's sake, if it would be helpful as far as the odor too, if that could be in consideration for whatever is being grown there.
deciduous. It's kind of a bad thing in a sense. Deciduous trees probably would absorb more of that. But then you don't get year-round or as much screening as a conifer. So the conifers are preferable from the sense of particularly a visual screen.
A visual?
Yeah. That they may actually make things smellier.
Yeah. Does anybody else have any other questions for the three facilities?
We addressed the gentleman here that's talking about the map. He's saying typically it don't smell. Well, that don't give me a yes or a no. Just processing is gonna be done after the harvest, I assume. I'm not familiar with your steps in that. I'm trying to explain that over next to the 200. So. Just meaning that we're gonna have this smell lasting longer
after the harvest has already been taken off the field into the building, now for the processing, we get the smell in November and December?
I can answer that.
Please, thank you, Andre.
So once the crop is brought into the building, we have to have good conditions in there, AC, heating, cool, all that.
Right.
So we have 40 ton of AC unit in there. The reason for it is because we also have dryers, dehumidifiers. They create a lot of heat, so we have to keep it cool at a certain temperature. In that duct, there is carbon filters that will clean the smell. And if that doesn't work or it's not good enough, we also sell carbon filters that are mounted and changed every 15 minutes or so. So that will get rid of the smell completely. There's no smell whatsoever going outside of the building.
Okay.
Okay, I've been inside of a lot of indoor grows. You don't smell it at all when you go there. Not like a basement grow where people put fans straight out the window. This is state controlled. It's a regulation by the state that you have to have carbon filters in there and change every 12 to 15 months.
Thank you, Andre. Commission, do you have any other questions for the facilities? Jay, can you advise me, are we making a motion now, or will we do our recommendation for the board down there?
We can do it now.
We can do it now, each individually?
Yes.
Okay. If no one has any other questions for the first one on our list, is RQMI requesting 11 Class C permits, 4 excess permits, and 1 processing permit. And this is the facility located on 186th Avenue. I will take a motion one way or the other.
Make a motion.
To renew it.
Okay,
Second.
Or,
okay. Motion by Mike, second by Jay to approve their application renewal for 11 Class C permits, 4 excess permits, and 1 processing permit.
Recommended.
recommend approval.
Recommend approval to the township board, which will be listening and hearing it tomorrow evening. We're gonna do a roll call vote for this. Jay?
Yes.
Wayne?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jen? Yes. Rick?
Support, yes.
And Mike?
Yeah.
Motion passes 6-0. Am I right? Yeah, 6-0, geez. Jan, you're throwing me off.
I'm sorry, I'm listening. I know I can't vote. That's okay.
Okay, thank you. And can I have a motion one way or the other for True North Collective? And our recommendation to the township board for their 7 Class C permits and 1 excess permit, and this is the location at 200th and Yonker.
I make a motion, we approve or recommend support and renewal.
Okay, motion by Rick, second by Jay, to recommend to the board the approval of 7 Class C permits and 1 excess permit for True North. We're gonna do a roll call vote again for this. Jay? Wayne?
Yes.
Mary?
Yes.
Jen is a yes. Yes, and Mike. Motion passes 6-0. And the last one on our the application renewal permit for High Cloud LLC, they're requesting 14 Class C permits, 1 excess permit, and 1 processing permit. This is location at M20. Can I have a motion one way or the other for High Cloud? Motion by Jay, second by Rick. We'll do a roll call again for this. Jay?
Support.
Mary?
Yes.
Jen's yes?
Yes.
Yes, and that is another pass. Recommendation 6-0. And then the next thing on our new business is the need for a special meeting for new marijuana permit requests. Steve, you're gonna have to elaborate on this one once needed.
Okay. I don't know that we need anything. Right now, I have no applications.
Okay,
If we were to have a special meeting, obviously besides notifying the planning commission, we would have to do the same thing as we did for this public hearing here. We would have to send notices to all neighboring neighboring property owners publish in the Herald Journal
Okay.
and all of that. Since I haven't received any applications, I don't know that we want to set a date for something that
Okay.
may not happen.
Perfect, sounds good. Thank you. Jay, did you have something on the citizen planner training?
Just, talking with Michigan State, they'll work with us, depending on where COVID is.
Okay, whether it's an in-person thing or a virtual thing?
Yeah, last year they were doing a combination of both.
Okay,
2 years ago, they did just Zoom,
okay,
and it's up to the individuals. They can do the citizen planner completely remotely if they want.
okay,
Comfort of their PJs,
okay,
their bed, or we can have a facilitator come in and train us. or
Okay.
A combination of both.
okay. Do you think you could email that out to us to take a look at? That would be
And
fantastic.
it is an excellent class to take.
Okay,
Is that part of this? Or is something?
No,
No,
that's
it's different.
different.
okay,
Citizen planner is very intense.
okay,
And it covers everything from the law that authorizes zoning to the effects, and legal issues and trouble spots and all that.
okay,
It is time consuming, I
okay.
will say that, but it's an excellent course.
Jay, have you done it? You've gone through it?
I've taken some courses on it, yes.
Okay, okay. Yeah, if you want to send us information on it, that would be good. Thank you. All right, Steve, you are up for zoning administrator comments.
Okay, I said, I did that. I left everyone, some information there. The first one, which is the two pieces stapled together, was kind of a summary of our activity for 2021. And to contrast that, I also included the summary from 2020. I think what's really significant is that we had 5 new homes come in 2021 with a combined estimated cost of just shy of $1 million, $971,000.
Wow.
$200,000. And I'm expecting actually at least 3 to start off this new year. I think another area that's kind of interesting is in our pole barn. We've had 11 garages or pole barns put up. There again, just a little short of $400,000 there. Just to give folks an idea, last year where we had commercial, the amounts that were listed under commercial were estimated costs from the realtor who kind of flipped some properties. This year we have actual numbers of what these folks, this is what these folks just spent on their buildings. This does not include fencing. This does not include camera systems. This doesn't include the wells, septics.
This is the 100 acres out on Pierce?
No. This is the
3 facilities.
the 3 facilities.
Okay, sorry.
Okay, the
Okay.
3 facilities just on their buildings only, spent $1.2 million. And most of that was spent locally. And we're local contractors who did these, and that's $1.2 million.
That's a lot of
Now
money.
add that to almost another $1 million in new homes. That's over $2 million that was invested into Newfield Township last year. I think that's damn good. I don't think it's enough. The proof is always in the pudding. Put your money where your mouth is.
Except when I've been canvassing, people have moved.
We're not doing discussion.
Francie, now's not the time.
He's a Dan, by the way. We know what's another Dan.
Oh, I apologize.
Steve, is that it?
I'm
How
done.
about what's the other?
Oh, the other was just our report for the month in December. December obviously slowed down quite a bit, you know, because it was Christmas time. So, and I'll leave it at that, it got quite late.
Okay, thank you. All right, number 10, recommendations to the board, and just as a reminder, now as our new secretary, any recommendations to the board have to be submitted to them in writing. Okay.
Bye tomorrow.
Yeah.
It really is by tomorrow.
No pressure.
So our recommendations to the board is to renew or approve the application and renewal marijuana permits for RQMI, True North, and High Cloud as they've respectively submitted them. Is there anything else I'm missing? Okay, can I have a motion for adjournment? Jay, a motion by Jay, can I have a second? Second by Mike for adjournment. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Adjourned.